Welcome to this information choosing session from DSUK. I am Sarah Holton, and I've been working with children with Down syndrome for about 13 years now, alongside Becky, who you've just seen there, who is DSUK's Director of Education. In my role, I do quite a lot of school support, primary school support, going and supporting children in schools and early development groups and preschool and nursery support as well, and lots of training on lots of different things. I used to be a primary school teacher, early years and key stage 1. Primary school teacher for about 18 years. And I'm also a parent. I have 2 children, and my eldest, who is now 19, has Down syndrome. So, as I said, welcome to this session tonight on choosing a preschool or nursery. I don't want you to get overwhelmed, and I'm hoping that this is just going to give you a little bit of an idea, some things to think about when you're choosing preschool or nursery. So, here we go. Are we going? There we are. So, this is what the session will look like tonight. Have a look at the options. So what is out there? What is available for you and your family? Then we'll look a little bit at different sizes and groups and how they work. And then we'll talk about the role of the key worker and the role of the SENCo, and that's the Special Educational Needs Coordinator. Then we've got a couple of slides just on funding. So there is a bit of additional funding that might be available for you. And then I think this is the most important part. So what are the goals and needs for your own child? And that is going to be the bit that is different, and that's quite all right. And again, hope that this session will just give you some of those things. Oh yes, that's exactly what we want, or no, we're not interested in that, but we might need that. So your personal and family needs or expectations of the setting, and of course how we might go about supporting a child with Down syndrome. And as Becky said, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So what are your options? There are quite a few options when you're going to have a look and you're thinking about choosing a setting. You've got nurseries, and they are usually the big ones, and they take children from very small up until school age, so 4 years old. Then we've got preschools. They take children from around 2 years of age up until 4, just before they start school. And of course, you've got childminders. And I must say that when I talk about early year settings, I'm absolutely including childminders in there as well, and they will have varied ages depending on what they are offering and the space that they've got. And you might also have specialist provision. There are some specialist preschools and nurseries around, or might be a resource provision. And of course, you can have a combination, and that is completely up to you, what you think is right for your child. They might do one preschool for 2 days, and they might do another for 3 days. It is completely what works with you. And each setting is different, and that's why it is really important to go and have a look at some. So no 2 nurseries are the same, I promise you. So go and have a look and visit a variety, so you get that kind of feeling about what they're offering and what are you looking for. There might be one you set your heart on or that's been recommended, and when you go and have a look, you think, no, do you know what? This isn't quite right for us, and that is okay. Preschools, nurseries, childminders would also have Ofsted reports. Some people like to look at Ofsted reports. You might want to have a little look and see, what their special educational needs provision is like. I would say if you like looking at that, that's fine. But often they don't really say what's going on in a preschool. It might not be something that's really important to you, but they are there. And it might be that you're thinking a little bit ahead. So maybe you've got older children that go to schools that you think, well, I really want my child to go to that school, and there might be feeder preschools. Sometimes schools have settings that are attached to them. You might think, do you know what, we want to choose this school because they're going to make friends and go up with their friends. That's important, but again, shouldn't be if you find a preschool that is amazing but isn't necessarily in the catchment school for your area, don't worry about it. It is absolutely your choice, and you can change your mind. So it doesn't matter at all If you change your mind, that is entirely up for you. It is your choice. It's parents' choice. But the best thing to do is go and have a look round the options that are in your area. And it might be, and I know some people might go, do you know what? It's near my work. That would be great. Might not be where you live, but it's near my work, so I can drop my child off on the way to work. It's whatever works for you, and it is your choice. So when you're going to have a look round the setting, they would be different sizes. So when you go in, have a little look at what's going on. Do they have different rooms for different ages? Most larger settings will have that, and they are grouped by age. So you have your baby room, and then you might have your 1 to 2s and your 2 to 3s, and then your preschools. So have a look to see how that works. If they're smaller, they might all be in together, particularly preschools that are perhaps you might get one that's in a church hall or community centre, and they might well be all together. So you might have 2-year-olds with 4-year-olds. Again, none of these are me saying this is better or not, or this is how it should be. It's just about we think, oh, what might work for my child? You might certainly have an idea of, do you know what, I think they might feel better in a smaller setting, or you certainly might, do you know what, they need to be out in a big garden. I'm going to have to choose somewhere that's got a lovely outdoor area. So it's just about thinking about how they work. When you go and have a look, is it free flow? Is it easy to navigate? Perhaps you've got a child, a younger child, or a child that's not fully mobile. So how do they access things? Just things to think about. But we will say when you're going to chat with the staff and with people at the setting to go and have a look round, we do recommend the real importance of our children staying with their age group. So I'd be checking that out when you go and have a look. And especially we see that for maybe non-walkers, and they might say, well, they're not walking, so they can't move up to, say, the preschool age group, when actually that has, you know, pretty much nothing to do with it. And we know that our children need those role models for speech and social behaviour, and those age-appropriate expectations are really important. So we want the child moving up as they go through the preschool or through the nursery, up with their peers that are the same age. So size of setting might be something that's important to you, thinking about your child and what would work best for them. Right, so everybody, whether they're childminder, nursery, preschool, will have a key worker, and they are usually in charge of a group of children. There's a ratio, and usually this changes as they get older. So it might be a smaller group when they're really little, and then they're in charge of a larger group as they get older. But they are responsible. They will be your point of contact, and they'll be the person that probably spends the most time with your child in that group. What you need to find out about them, well, first of all, they just need to be really lovely. And I've put down there, find out if they've got any experience and training in special needs or with Down syndrome. That is important, and it can be really comforting and really helpful to think, do you know what, they've already had a child with Down syndrome, or yes, they went, I know they do this training. That can be really helpful for us parents, but not everybody's had that opportunity to have training, and you really just want someone who's super keen, that will maybe go on training or is just super keen to work with your child. That to me is more important, but it can be a bonus if they've already had some experience and training in that area. They will also work with the SENCo, that's the Special Needs Coordinator. We'll talk about them in the next slide. And it might be that your child has working with some outside agencies. So again, they would be happy for people to come into the setting and to share their knowledge. It might be that they go to some early development groups, perhaps. Would they be happy to go along and watch? You know, when I go into nurseries, I want to make sure that the key worker is happy that I'm there and we can have a good old chat. So again, it might be that you might want to talk to them about any outside agencies that might come in. They might come in, you might have, I don't know, a visual impairment team that want to come in, or something to do with feeding, for example, and are they happy to work with them? And again, we want key workers that are easy to communicate with, because they end up being quite important parts of our lives and our children's lives, especially if they're in the preschool or the settings for quite a while. So quite often they're the people that you're going to you're going to talk to say, do you know what, we've had a terrible night, or, oh, I'm struggling with this. It's going to be that key worker. So having someone that you feel is easy to communicate is actually really high on the list of priorities. And I've just put there that they're there at the end of the day or session. Very occasionally we've kind of had key workers, but they might go home just before your child, before your child leaves, or something like that. But again, you want someone to touch base with. And preschool settings, nursery settings do have a lot of communication going on with their key worker and their families. So you want to make sure that that person is someone that you're going to feel really comfortable with, and that, you know, you can develop a relationship with if you want to. So the SENCo, so again, every setting will have someone assigned as the role of SENCo, and that's the Special Educational Needs Coordinator. And I think it's really important when you're looking around a setting to make sure you have a proper conversation, or go and see the setting and then go back to have a good chat with the SENCo, because they are the people who are in charge, and they will be in charge of your child, and they are the ones that coordinate all things special educational needs. So you do want to know their experience of children with special educational needs. That's quite important. Have they had any experience of children with Down syndrome? Again, it's always a bonus. They may well have had, but they also might not have had. But again, just like with the key worker, you want someone that is welcoming and keen, that says, absolutely, we haven't had a child with Down syndrome before, but that doesn't matter. We're going to be really keen to support your child. Can't wait to have him or her starting. Got this training booked. We've been to DSUK, and we're ready to go. So that's kind of what you want to look for. But their main responsibility is guiding and supporting. They are overseeing the whole kind of process. So if someone if they're not sure, if the key worker's unsure of something, they go to the SENCo. The SENCo should be checking and monitoring things, how things are going. They're usually the person that works out appointments and people coming in to see your child if they need to. So that's, you want someone who's fairly good at that kind of thing, fairly what's the word? I can't remember, it's gone out of my mind now, but fairly good at organising, a good organiser, that's what I mean, a good organiser. Also, what's really important, and again, don't want to kind of, if you're just starting your kind of early years preschool nursery setting, don't want to kind of think things too far ahead. But for most of our children with Down syndrome, they need an EHCP before they start school. Now, an educational healthcare plan is put in place to ensure that our children get the support that they need when they go to school. And most children have those in place for going to school. Very occasionally, some children, perhaps with more significant needs, more complex needs, might have one in place in the nursery, in the preschool setting, especially if you feel that they need additional support that needs to be funded. That would go in the EHCP. But most of our children, we get writing. That's a bit of a long process. There'll be other training and information at a later date, I'm sure. But it is usually the role of the SENCo to start that off, to make that application, because they'll be the ones that say, well, in our setting, we feel that they need this support and they will need this support going forward into school. It's a bit of a lengthy process, takes a little bit of toing and froing and writing reports and getting everyone together. So all the people that are working with your child come together for this EHCP to write reports, and then they get sent off, and there's a bit of waiting, and you get drafts, and hopefully you then get one that you're happy with in place for school. But it is really important that the SENCo has experience of writing those, because they are the people that will start the process. Sorry, they don't write the EHCP, but they write the applications, and we want them to be having experience so we know that they're putting the right things in. As I said before, happy to work with outside agencies, and all the good SENCos will welcome you to come and chat as many times as you like. So that's probably a good reflection on a good SENCo that says, yes, come on in, here's my email number, come and arrange a visit, come and chat as many times as you like so we can get to know each other. And all those, I think, good SENCos will be able to offer that for you, because there's always questions that you don't ask, isn't there, Nate? And you think, oh, I should have asked that. Just a small slide on typical funding here. There is funding for working parents and for families. So it's there on the slide. Again, that is something that really chat with preschools about. They'll have different ways of how that works out in terms of payments and what that looks like. But that's just to let you know that there is funding there, more information on the government websites. But the most important part, I think, for funding is this next slide, because this is additional funding that might support our children with Down syndrome. Many children that I see work really well and manage well in nurseries with a typical group ratio and some reasonable adjustments. So those adjustments might be in terms of some different resources, perhaps, or so it might be that some children need some adaptations to things, or differentiated targets. Most of our children work really well within that parameter. But there is, and it's really important to know that there is something called the DAF, which is the Disability Access Fund, and that is for children, any child from 2 years old, if they claim disability living allowance, and that can be used for reasonable adjustments. And that is a yearly payment, and I think it's £938, and that is for the setting, and the setting then use that to buy in anything that they think is going to support the child. And it might be that some of that might be used to join DSUK and join the early years development programme, for example, for a year, which is going to give the setting lots and lots of resources and information and advice and strategies for your child. So just getting that in there, but it's there for the setting to use as they wish. There is something else that is available called the SENIF, which is the SEN inclusion funding, and that is a grant for children that need higher levels of support. So really something that is a bit more than those reasonable adjustments. As always, there is a little bit more criteria to be met, and there has to be clear evidence that needs can't be met without it. But that is also a grant that is out there and available should you think that your child needs it, or should the setting think that your child needs it. So really important to know there, especially the DAF, because that is a good little chunk of money there yearly if your child claims DLA, Disability Living Allowance. So this, I think, is the important part. We've kind of done the kind of what do nurseries look like and what you should see in a nursery and who you'll meet. But the goals for your child are the most important part, because they will be different for each family and for each child. I've got a big old list of what we're going to go through this evening, and this is not to overwhelm. This is just to put in what we think is important. But as you go through, you'll see why we say some things are important, and that knowledge and understanding of children with Down syndrome, and hopefully you come away with thinking, oh yes, that is really important for my child. That's the priority for him or her. So don't look at this long list and go in with this long list to different settings and say, I've got to do all of this. But hopefully this is giving you enough information to go, oh, I know what I'm kind of looking for. I know what's really important. And this is what it looks like to be able to talk about to the preschool staff. So we're going to go through all of those bits in that list there. So settling in, that's really important. So when you're going and looking at your preschools and your nurseries and your childminders, ask them about their settling in plan. What is it? Most places will have a plan, but again, those good places will be pretty flexible if you think more sessions are needed. So if you think, and sometimes it's for us, the parents, isn't it? If you think, actually, no, we need to go in, we need to have some more stay and play activities, they need to have a little bit more time before we start, either full-time or start our days, that should be fine. Ask about their routines, what they would do in a typical day. It just depends on how old your child is, but usually when they're really little, when they're babies, they're going to follow the routines that parents say and try and stick as closely as they can to those. When they get older, usually it looks like they kind of follow the same routine, although there's always children that are asleep in the corner if they need to sleep, that kind of thing. But usually kind of preschool age, they're working together, aren't they? They're eating together, they're playing together and that kind of thing. But share yours. And even if you think, oh, you know, this might be a bit weird, most settings have seen most things. So nothing really is too strange or odd. But do talk about food in terms of how they're eating, what they eat, when they need their food, any allergies and any issues with food as well, and their sleeping routine, of course, and anything to do with nappies and toileting. So make sure you share yours so that you can really understand how that might fit in. But as I said, most settings will accommodate your routine. If you've got any medical information or advice, make sure that you share that. You're the expert. And if your child needs something additional that you feel you're going to have to go in and train the staff with, or outside agencies are going to come in again, those good preschools, nurseries, childminders will say, yes, absolutely, bring that on. So don't, that's something that is absolutely expected. Lots of children anyway can have different medical information that needs to be shared and different things. And if they need training, for example, again, it should be absolutely fine. It might help to write anything down like this, so that if you feel like, well, I've said it all, but are they going to remember? I do love a kind of an all about me page that's kind of written in a kind of friendly way, in a child friendly way, that just shares all of those likes and dislikes, that again is a little bit easier to read and for settings and staff to be able to remember. I'd also want to be asking, they're settling in. Do they have a communication diary? Now, this shows my children are 19 and 13, so it might be a while ago, but in the old days there was definitely a communication diary, which would have what they've eaten today, or whether they'd had wet nappies, for example, and what they enjoyed. And that came home every day. Nowadays, most people are on online portals such as Tapestry, where they share information, share photos, share progress. So again, ask about that in terms of how do they know? How do you know what's been going on in the day, and what do you want to know? What is important for you, in terms of what you would like to know that's gone on. And the other thing is, if you've got an older child that's maybe starting a preschool, so maybe they're age 2, 3, etc., I think, because it's something big, it's something new, it's a transition, it might be great to do a transition book, and the setting can help with that as well. Taking photos of the areas that says, this is where I'm going to play in the garden, and this is my key worker, his or her name is so-and-so, so that before they start, they're getting a little bit more input from visuals to support their understanding of what's happening. It's difficult just to rock up to a new place as well, isn't it? And actually, transition books are great for anyone starting something new. So it might be if they're in the preschool or in the nursery and they're going up to the preschool room, they're going to have pictures of all about their new room. So something like that would be really helpful, or to do with how they're going to transition and settle in. Here's a little example of a transition book. Now, this is a school example, but you get the gist. So I will hang my coat up here. I will put my book bag here. This is the hall where I eat my lunch. So it might be this is where I eat my snack, or this is where I eat my lunch. It might be this is the garden. This is the toilet. This is where I might have a nap, those sorts of things, so that we can prepare the child so they know what's coming, they can talk about it, they can point to things, and you can talk about it as well. So transition books are great if your child is a little bit older, say from about 2 onwards. So learning and individual targets. All childminders, preschools, nurseries follow the early years foundation stage curriculum, the EYFS, which is from birth to 5 years. That also includes reception year at school. And then in year 1, they start the national curriculum. So all the learning comes from that. But it is likely that our children with Down syndrome will also have their own individual targets. So the EYFS is based on child-led play, and that's what it focuses primarily on, learning through play. And it goes in kind of age-based in months, which I think for our children can be a little bit misleading, because we know that our children have a profile of strengths and difficulties. So there might be gaps there. and it might not necessarily run smoothly on age, but that is okay. And again, you want a setting that understands that, so they are able to look forward and look behind and work out where their children are and what their best learning should be. So we want to be, for most children, that's going to be broken down further for our children, and having those smaller targets. The EYFS is quite language based. It's based on the children showing they understand things through their language. Now, again, for most of our children with Down syndrome, that can be quite hard, especially in the early years. So we want the setting to be understanding ways that they can know if our children know something that doesn't rely on speech and language. So just knowing and understanding those a little bit. So we also want to make sure that as parents and carers, we know what those individual targets are. So we can work on them at home if we want to, we can share with other people, and it might be that they have outside agencies as well. So when we do early development groups, we do recommend that they share what we're doing in those groups as well into the early year settings too. And having that knowledge of the Down syndrome learning profile is really important. And I always think when I do training, I always start or include the Down syndrome learning profile in everything I do, because I think really it's the baseline for understanding about Down syndrome. But then, of course, we get to know our individual wonderful children to add to that and to sort of flesh it out. So it's really important they have that understanding of that. So whether that's through some training, coming on to EYDP program or other training, really, really important for staff to know that. And here it is here we are. So we know that our children and all people with Down syndrome will have this specific learning profile. It used to be thought that it was a global delay and that our children were just behind their peers, but it's not. It's very much a profile of strengths and difficulties. And I feel we want to use those strengths to support those difficulties. So the difficulties that our children often have, and again, we have lots of individuals with different abilities within this, but that you can always sort of think, actually, yes, if I understand this, I can change this to support the child. So we know that learning from listening is often really difficult for our children. And that's things when I go into preschools, when I go into schools, it's that carpet time when we're getting lots of people talking at us. That is very difficult for our children to process that and to remember everything and to understand everything. So that verbal short-term memory is often a little bit trickier for our children, remembering things that they've heard. So again, when we come on to the strengths, we can think about how we can help that. We also know that our children will have some difficulty with speech and language, particularly in their expressive language. And I always hear parents and staff say, oh, they understand way more they can let on. Absolutely. So understanding is often a strength or better in comparison to their expressive language. So things that they can express, things that they can say and actually say themselves and express themselves can be a difficulty. We also know that a high percentage of children have issues with hearing and vision. So it's important that you share that with staff, that they understand it. So if your child wears a hearing aid or has grommets or a Baha band, that staff really know how that works, what to do when the battery's gone and what it means and what their hearing difficulty means for them, because there's lots of different kind of types. And the same with vision. Lots of our children will wear glasses, but even if they don't, all children, all people with Down syndrome have difficulties with visual acuity. And that's really contrasts. And I suppose the best way of describing it is that people with Down syndrome see the world with a kind of mist over it. So thinking about resources and visuals need to be really clear and big and bold, even if they don't wear glasses. That's really important to know, isn't it? And again, it should be that baseline of resources and ways that we work with our children. We also know that because of lots of this, particularly that verbal short-term memory, that often our children find number particularly hard at remembering the count sequence, because a lot of it relies on that memory. You just have to remember things, and it's a bit abstract, isn't it? So we often find our children can struggle a little bit with number, and of course their fine and gross motor skills are also delayed, particularly when they're little. Lots of these things improve, of course, as they get older, but what's really important to know is those strengths, because it's those that we're going to use to support those difficulties. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's knowing that actually our children have a much better relative strength in visual learning. So learning from looking, really important. Their visual short-term memory is often much stronger than their verbal short-term memory. So they're going to remember things, they're going to understand more things that are shown to them. So making sure that we have lots of super visuals and that we're following up any spoken language with visuals to support. Really, really important. We also know our children have a good strength in that social understanding and empathy and social skills. So we want to make sure we are carrying on with that. We're making sure that we are supporting their social skills and having social targets as well. You'll be pleased to know, and I promise this is true, that as our children get older, usually self-help and daily living skills do improve. And I am seeing that now, I promise, a 19-year-old. So they do improve. And I want to, again, make sure that we're using those strengths of independence to making sure that that's how they're going to carry on being as independent as they can. And often because of these strengths in visual short-term memory, being visual learners, we see that reading is often a strength, particularly in learning and reading sight words. So using print and starting reading from really early on can be really beneficial for our children. So it's really important that staff are aware of this profile. If they're not, that they are keen to understand it. So ready for when your child starts. So this is also really important. It's got the word behaviour written on it, but it's really that social understanding. It's positive behaviour. And this, I think, is a priority. So whether your child is going for one morning a week or is all day, every day, all week, this should be a real clear priority, because this is about understanding rules and routines and being expected to follow them. So if you're all having a story on the carpet, we expect our child with Down syndrome to be joining in as well. And if they find it tricky, then we're going to work on building that up. We talked about visuals, but again, what is happening? Making sure our children know what's going to happen and now and next. And now it's going to be story time, and then it's going to be snack time, because they might not understand it if it's just spoken to us. So making sure they know what's happening. And again, other visuals to show routines. So it's washing hands time. Let's have a picture of us washing our hands, or it's time to go in the garden. What do we need to have on when we go in the garden? We need our wellies, we need our coat and our hat. Having those pictures, that's going to support our memory, remembering that our children are going to remember more from things that they've seen. Other things to be doing, again, just sort of naturally, and trying to make sure you're including that. So things to talk about when you're going to visit the session, preparing for transitions. Again, lots of our children find that a little bit, oh, hang on, I wasn't quite ready to go outside yet. I was just playing here. So preparing for transitions and cueing into signals. I go into preschools, there's lots of different signals to kind of stop and listen. Might be a tambourine or a hand wave. But again, how do our children know that? So just making sure that we're teaching them as well. And in terms of supporting positive behaviour, a great tip is to say what we want the child to do, not what we don't want them to do. So if you say, don't play with the taps, really, we're just reminding them about the taps. They might not have thought about it, but I've just remembered taps. You've just said taps, because that's what I remembered from what you said. I didn't really understand the don't play. I just really remembered playing taps. So now I'm going to play with taps. But actually, we flip it round and say, oh, going to the toilet, washing your hands. Oh, you mean washing my hands? Brilliant. That's what I'm going to do. So getting into the habit, and again, supporting staff to get into that habit of saying what they want the child to be doing. Okay, so I want sitting up really nicely, or playing with your friend, rather than, oh, don't poke your friend in the eye because, oh, hang on, poke an eye. I'll be doing that. That's fabulous. So this is quite important in terms of having really high expectations from the minute they come, whether that's they are babies, that they're going to be following those rules and routines. I know it might sound a little bit kind of bizarre, but it's going to set them up really well for future years and as they get to school, that they know that these adults are keeping them safe and there's boundaries and there's rules and routines that everybody has to follow. So again, having those short and fun, pacey activities, all things in nursery settings are fun and pacey. But again, for our children, we want to have them really successful, so they're going to enjoy doing them. You can have rewards and motivators. There's something they're not so keen on, well, you're going to have to do it, but afterwards you can have bubbles. So we're going to do a little bit of number work, and then it's going to be bubbles. Maybe we don't like tidying up, so we'll have a picture of tidying up, and I'm going to help you. What is tidying up? Put these things in the box and then it's going to be bubbles. And the other thing is encouraging independence as much as possible. And again, you might be thinking, well, I've got a baby in arms. Okay. But as our children start to get a little bit older and thinking about age expectations, what do other children do? It might be that they're hanging their bag up on their peg, putting out the cups at snack time, having those responsibilities and supporting independence from a really, as soon as you can, having those really high expectations. That's my son there in his little toilet book. So again, we were toilet training, an example of what we wrote in there, what we wanted him to do. He couldn't do it yet, but I can sign toilet. I can say toilet, wee and poo when I need the toilet. So focusing on all the things that we wanted him to do, rather than I don't make a mess or something instead. But having those pictures and those visuals will really, really help. A love and now and next, really important. And the other thing, of course, is play. And that's a big thing because that's really the main focus of early year settings and learning through play. And again, play, I think, is that first way of describing social skills, isn't it? So it's really, really important. And we know that our children often have play partners for longer and will need support in their play skills. So what can they play with already? So again, that might be something that as parents and families, we're thinking about what can they do at home. So we know that they can do that at nursery and build on that. And it's really important that nurseries and preschools are teaching new play skills. So having a focus, and that would be a great target to have, is teaching those new skills. Sometimes, especially in bigger settings, there's a lot of choice, and I do sometimes see our children not really knowing what to choose, and they kind of flit about a bit, do a little bit of something and move on. They're not really sure. So again, that might be having some visuals to support that choice. So which one do you want to play with, this one or this one? Just takes a little bit of that out, but still gives the children a choice that they're in control and in charge. We want some time where they're playing on their own, absolutely, because everybody has time to play on their own, but we also want to support their play with peers. So are they going to be working in groups with adult support, taking turns, and my turn, your turn, and understanding that you have to wait sometimes and sharing, that's really important. And again, should be a target for most of our children, a really great target to have. And often, again, a little bit doing sometimes if there's too much choice, but our children are very good. Well, all children are very good. And I'm not going to choose the activities that are hard. So if I don't know what they are or they look hard, I'm not choosing them. But quite often they're the things that our children need that practice with. So again, we want to make sure that staff in the settings are aware of the things that they need to practice, and make sure that they are including those in the routine as well. So especially things like fine motor skills, I'm not choosing those because they're tricky, but actually you do need lots of practice. And just sharing with what you're doing at home, or if they go to any other groups to say, oh, we're working on this at this group. Can you work on that as well? So that's kind of the first part, was the kind of the play and the settling in and the behaviour and the rules and routines. And that, I think, is the priority. But also when I go into nurseries to support, I often go in with a bit of a theme, which will be something based on the things coming up in a minute. Might be on language, could be on number, could be on reading, because we know that having those early interventions in those specific areas can really support our children. So there may be things that you think are more important, or something you want to make sure that settings do. And here's just some of the ideas. So we want to ensure that we're having some language and communication targets and goals, making sure that staff are going to respond to all those early skills. It might be facial expressions, could be just a gesture, a bit of intonation. Everyone's going to be responding to everything. So we're letting our children know from as early as we can, if they make an attempt at communication, they're going to get a response. It might be that you are doing some signing, could be Makaton. Does the setting do it? Are they going to learn? Do you want them to learn a sign a week or have a signs of the day? What can your child already do? If they're signing, sometimes our children don't quite do the accurate sign. That's okay. What does their version look like? So thinking about how they communicate at home. Choices are brilliant. So introducing choices, talked about those just a little bit earlier. But even if you know the answer, so do you want an apple or an orange? And you've got a choice with some pictures. We know the answer, but actually we're going to support them to respond and communicate to us which one they want. And just getting in, we want staff to get in really early with expecting a speech attempt or a communication attempt. Might be with sign, but I think our children are, all children are, but I think our children are very good at looking gorgeous and knowing who, if they can get away with minimal effort. And especially when language and communication is tricky, if I don't have to do it, but I look like I get my big eyes out and people will do things for me and I don't have to chat, don't have to speak. So getting into the habit of expecting a speech and modelling it. Oh, you want more, do you? Do you want more? Your turn. More. You have a go at signing. More. You have and expect to have a go is a really great thing for staff to get into that habit really early on. Working in groups, as I said, much as possible, sharing, turn taking, all that kind of thing, and creating this communication-rich environment. So thinking about what are the other children talking about? When are they communicating? And thinking about supporting our children who find that harder to do the same. Again, we're going to go back to visuals to use to prompts. Think about the child's interests. We've got an example here of an I like mat. We've had that out at snack time. That's usually quite a chatty time. So we can all point to our own mat and share and show what we like. Again, don't have to be speaking, but we are interacting and communicating with others. How do we support children with Down syndrome or children who aren't verbally confident to be able to go and ask a friend to play? Let's get some visuals. Let's choose an activity and get some visuals so they can go and ask a friend and take it over and say, will you play? They may not be reading it, they may not be saying it all, but they're used to communicating and interacting, but really thinking about visuals. So I'd really want to see, again, preschools being okay with thinking about visuals to support communication. Speech development, we're talking about specific speech development here. We want to start as early as we can. And in our groups, we start with the babies. And it might be that your child has some specific speech and language targets from an outside agency. If they're able to come in, that would be brilliant. So again, one of the important parts of being in an early year setting is they're immersing the children in the language. That's really important. They're hearing it, not just from adults, but from other children as well. And that's really, really important. But I think if you've got some speech targets, that's probably the only time I would suggest you might need a little bit of specific time for this, because sometimes you need a bit of a quiet moment. So making sure the children can hear and really focus on their speech. Using sound cards, again, from a really early age, having those sound cards, and we're just looking at whether they're listening and looking at the card and then looking at the sound that your mouth, the sound that your mouth is making and the position of your mouth. So really from an early age, having a go at that. And if they're attempting to say that sound, even if they're just moving their mouth a little bit, lots and lots of praise. Here's a lovely picture. He's got a little lad here and he's looking at mummy's face. She's going, duh. He's looking at the picture and really focus and attention. So again, starting really early is recommended for our children, and you may well progress as you go on. It might be that you have pictures and objects. You might have a bag full of things that start with S. You might be able to play I Spy with those things. Things like syllable clapping as well are great in terms of breaking down more complicated words. So we've got, crocodile. is a little bit easier to say if you're able to break it down. So again, I'd be thinking if that's important to you, and these are important, but again, link it to what you want as a family, and of course, how many times your child goes to the preschool. Some speech support might be really, really important. Linking onto that is a bit of reading and vocabulary. We're just thinking of early vocabulary. What can we teach the children? Lots of places have themes anyway. Might be having an animal theme or a transport theme. That's a great time to be able to teach that vocabulary. Again, having books. This is my animal book. This is my animal bag. It's my objects, animals. Which ones am I learning? Personal books are brilliant. So again, if you're having pictures of the children's family, often really, really motivating. And can help to teach. Might be our favourite toys. It might be my favourite people. Maybe we're learning all about me. And we're going to have mummy and daddy and aunties and grandmas and pets and siblings names in a book with pictures. Can be really motivating. And again, we can use that to extend as they get a little bit older, a bit more familiar. So we might have a picture of mummy, and then it might say mummy is eating. So now we're learning eating and understanding that as well. So here's some examples. Oh, this makes me laugh. This is what I look like when I'm having my tea. So we've got mummy is eating, we've got daddy is eating. So again, a child can look through that, see the print, start to think about that vocabulary because it's nice and repetitive. Here we're learning about food names. So we might match the apple, match the yogurt, the biscuit, the banana. We can match a picture onto the top. So we're thinking about extending that vocabulary as well. And those early reading skills, turning pages, looking at print, looking at pictures, and reading for enjoyment. And number, also, again, is something that I said our children can find tricky. So again, I would go into the setting, have a little look around. Have they got some number around? Have they got maths everywhere? And we want really to be included as much play as possible, using that language as much, so more and less. Who's got the biggest, smallest? Oh, look, my water tray is full, yours is empty. Getting numbers around, having around kind of really naturally as much as you can throughout the day. Number songs and games, playing lots and lots. And having those visuals to support. So again, if you're singing the 5 little speckled frogs, then let's get those 5 frogs and let's get a big number line out as well, so we can link what we're saying to what we mean, those numbers and those visuals. Things like Numicon are brilliant. They're a visual learning system, which again, is going to often supports our children, that visual number system. So you can see there that the orange 1, that's smaller than the blue 10. Getting them out, you can do all sorts of things with those. You can paint with them, you can print with them, you can stick them in Play-Doh, having large number lines and lots of things to count. Very, very important for those early number skills. And last of all, again, fine and gross motor skills. So you want to see how their setting might support those. Really, it's going to be a lot of practice. And that's what our children need to establish those motor neuro pathways. They need lots of repetition for it to stay embedded, which means that they can then do it. We know that children with Down syndrome often have lower muscle tone, which is why a lot of the time their gross motor skills are delayed. And also ligaments tend to be a little bit stretchier as well, which can make manipulating small objects more difficult. So really, it is all about practice. Lots of things just happen really naturally in early year settings, climbing, stepping, riding a bike, all of the things you would do as well when they're little, making sure they're having tummy time, rolling, crawling, reaching for things, but all of the usual things you would expect to see in making sure that our children can have a go at those things as well. But I can't say enough of that. That is practice. Using it in the play as much as possible. Who doesn't love some shaving fun? So here's the key, and this is balancing it all. So it's about working out what feels right for your family and for your child. It is absolutely the social experiences that are the priority. It's the rules, the routines, the high expectations, the play skills and working with peers and different adults and with independence. All of those things are going to be the things that really support our children to be successful as they go through life, as they go through school. So that's going to be should be your priority. And of course, it depends on how often your child goes to preschool or nursery. And you want to have a balance of that free time as well. And that's going to look different. It might be that you go, do you know what? This is what we're going to focus on to start with. That'll be great. And then you might want the preschool to be building in some of the other things around number, around fine motor, around reading and speech. And that is completely up to you. But again, those great nurseries, those great settings should be keen to find out about how they can support a child with Down syndrome, and find out about what that support looks like. But just to finish off, go on your gut feeling. As I said before, it's not always the settings that have had lots of experience, but if they're willing and they're flexible and you go in and you think, yep, this is the one, then that is going to be the one. We do want them to be prepared to kind of find out about Down syndrome and, of course, your child as an individual. Great communication is really important, both formal and informal, and having that understanding of the importance of early interventions. Those social opportunities, really, really important. And actually going to a nursery or preschool childminder is often really beneficial for children with Down syndrome.